Marker.
Roll sounds.
Rolling.
Roll camera. Marker.
Roll camera.
Action.
If I had to come up with one sentence that would describe this movie, I would say that it is probably the most unbelievably crazy, insane film that has ever been made. And it was shocking beyond belief that no one died. My dad, Noel Marshall, was at the center of it all. In 1978, he was the director, producer, and star of the movie Roar, along with 150 untrained lions, tigers, leopards, and cougars. Dad had a dream to show the world that humans and big cats can live side by side. But after 10 years, millions of dollars, and a string of catastrophes, he was learning how misguided that really was. It was the most dangerous movie ever made. No animals were harmed in the making of this film, but 70 cast and crew members were. And for 35 years, my brother Jerry and I have held on to the footage from the film.
First time I've seen a lot of this stuff in many, many years. A lot of good animal footage.
It's a spectacle of a film to watch. It's impossible to make that movie that way with real animals again. Anybody responsible wouldn't let you do it. It wasn't safe.
Rolling.
Roll camera.
Roll camera.
The whole thing just is like this biblical, epic story.
Noel was a circus huckster. He was a manipulator. He was dishonest. But he had that very special skill that I couldn't help but respect.
It was the late 60s when all of this started. My parents were on an African safari, and they saw a house that was overrun by lions. It was the game warden's house that had been abandoned because of a flood, and they thought that was really cool. And so they came back to Southern California, and I guess on the plane they were talking about, why don't we make a movie like that, and we'll just have the family in it. We did know a thing or two about Hollywood. My stepmother is Tippi Hedren, who was a huge star from Hitchcock's movie, The Birds. Dad was her manager, and my stepsister's Melanie Griffith. Although this was early on in her career, probably 20 years before she took home the Golden Globe. My brother Jerry and I had done some acting, so we would round out the cast, with our brother Joel working behind the scenes. Dad wrote the majority of the script, which would be about a family in Africa living in a house filled with dozens of big cats. He wanted the animals to behave naturally, so instead of using trained animals, he got this crazy idea that we would raise our own pride. And so my folks began to buy, adopt, and rescue any big cat they could get their hands on, which was ridiculously easy to do in the 70s. Big cats were being bred all over the US.
The 70s were probably the most interesting decade in the history of Hollywood because you could get almost any kind of movie made. And that's because all the big studios had sort of bottomed out. And so at the time that Noel Marshall first said, I'm gonna make this wild lion movie, it would have been thought of as, yeah, let's give it a shot. So they started inviting cats into their home in order to acclimate the cats to them and acclimate themselves to the cats and make everybody feel comfortable before they started shooting.
Imagine being a kid and growing up and saying, oh, you got these big lions and stuff. You love dogs, you love cats. They're just big cats, and they do play like cats a lot.
Well, Zoning, first off, you're not allowed to have lions and tigers in Sherman Oaks, which is adjacent to Beverly Hills. No, it's a given, it's not allowed. And as much as we loved hand-raising the cubs, they grow fast. And our living room was no match for 500-pound lions. So over the next 4 years, as Dad was building up a stable of 150 cats, he was also building the set, planting 800 trees, and transforming 40 acres of California desert into a playground for lions, tigers, and himself.
In my life, I've met only a few people in the film business that have like some kind of animal magnetism that is like this electricity that comes off of them. And Noel was one of those people. There was something about him from, I guess, from years of living with the cats that gave him this kind of animalistic energy.
He was a big cat himself. That's what those cats looked at him as. And he liked to be the big one, the big male pride lion.
It's just like life. You get the funny with the tragic. Just with them, you get the gentle and the ferocious, too. The closer you get to them, the more they'd like you, the safer you'd be.
Noel would go into the compounds and yell, "Come on, lions!" And they'd all come racing towards him.
The cat's got a little extra. Yeah, that's all. Oh.
These animals weren't really trained. They were brought up in captivity, and they were kind of trained to be comfortable around people. And, you know, he had a hierarchy of him as the alpha male.
He thought that you could live with the animals safely, and they could be part of your family. I learned at the St. Louis Zoo, and you're taught that animals can be trained, but they can't be tame. And Noel thought they could be tame. And he had all the bite marks to prove that I was right.
So while we were doing all this in the beginning, taking in 150 big cats, some zebras, 2 elephants, and building an African set in the riverbed of a California canyon, we'd run out of money. To pay for it all, Dad and Tippi sold everything and moved into a mobile home on the set. But their fortunes turned around pretty soon after that because a film Dad had executive produced was about to become a blockbuster. It was a supernatural thriller called The Exorcist. Dad now had enough money to get started with Roar and hire a crew, but there weren't a lot of people that were willing to come work where there's 100 lions because there was no way that you could train that many animals. So you kind of took anybody you could get.
I moved to Los Angeles in July of 1977, and I came from Austin, Texas. The first job that anybody could get in Los Angeles, whether they had just gotten out of prison or just come to the city and wanted to work in film, was this movie called Roar.
I was in my early 20s. I remember one of my buddies calls me up and says, "So have you ever production coordinated before?" I said, "Yeah, I can production coordinate," which, you know, I'd never done the job, and stares at my very limited resume and says, "Okay." That was it. That was my interview.
So I was looking in Variety, and I saw an ad for a script supervisor for Roar.
So I went out there and they said, "Are you a camera assistant?" And I lied, and I said, "Yes, I am."
I told him I'd never done script supervising before, so he told me what to do, and it sounded pretty simple. I signed on.
I was contacted by a placement service from the makeup school I had attended about a year earlier. First day, Noel came in and says, "Where's the makeup?" And I said, "Oh, this is it right here." And it was a little bottle. He grabbed the bottle, he poured it out in his hands, rubbed his face with it, and said, "How's this?" And I just rubbed it out behind the neck and in his ear a little bit, and I said, "Oh, looks great." "Okay, great." And he just ran out.
Most of the crew didn't have a lot of experience, but we knew we needed somebody that was really good to lead the camera team. Someone brilliant, who was also willing to put his life on the line. And we found Jan de Bont, who would later become the cinematographer of Die Hard, and a huge director in Hollywood with Speed and Twister.
Jan, at that point, had just come from Holland, and I think this was his first job in the United States, and he had two sides to his personality. Personally, he was very sweet and very gentle, but he could also be a screamer and a very demanding person to work with.
He was, well, not Mr. Warmth.
I was the camera assistant for Jan de Bont. Nobody else wanted to do that job. Jan was teaching me how to be a good focus puller, and I got good at it because he would just yell at me. So now I know all the Dutch swear words.
Noel and Jan both were very impulsive, and they were always doing something stupid and crazy.
People were going to get bit, people were going to get hurt, and they did.
We started filming Roar in '76. By then, we'd built a compound an hour outside of LA, financing was in place, and my dad, Noel Marshall, had cast our two leads, himself as a scientist studying big cats, and Robbie, who we had adopted at 2 years old and was just the most beautiful and gentlest lion you can imagine. And so the two of them would anchor a family-friendly film about big cats.
Roar is a story of a man who is living in Africa among lions and tigers, studying their behavior.
He has a friend named Mativo, and this guy's family is coming to visit him. This guy is Noel Marshall, and somehow he goes to the airport and they get a ride and they miss each other. And the family shows up in this house where lions, tigers, cougars, and leopards have been living freely as they want.
And so it was just one little catastrophe after another, protecting themselves from the cats.
Then there's a subplot of Togar, the evil lion, who is kind of attacking the good lions.
It's sort of like the old thing, if you have a million monkeys typing on a typewriter, you'll end up with Hamlet. Well, their idea was, if you have enough wild animals, if you just let them do whatever they want to do, you'll end up with a movie.
We started filming October 1st of '76. The first day of filming, Dad wanted something amazing to show investors. He started by filming the big lion fight, so we thought that would be magnificent, and that's the one Dad really wanted to do. In the film, Dad's living with the cats, and they're all getting along great, and Robbie leads the pride. Then a rogue lion, Togar, comes in, and there's a big fight, and all of a sudden, Robbie's brothers start to challenge his dominance.
I gotta go help your uncles. They're killing each other.
Now, these are completely untamed, untrained, full-grown male lions. They had all their claws and teeth and testosterone.
Stop it! Stop it!
Noel's character would rush in and break up the lion fight as like he was the king of the beasts or the alpha male that was going to take care of this matter. This worked fine for the first two takes. On take 3, he ran in, broke up the fight, but one of the lions bit him through the hand.
You can see him, and he shakes his hand a couple times, and then the lion comes back after him again. And he gets to where there's a small tree branch that he can pull down, and he pulls the tree branch. And the lion came with his mouth open, and Dad stuck that tree branch into the lion, and that was the only thing that saved him.
The bite caused arterial bleeding that was shooting out about 15 feet. We loaded Noel into the ambulance, and they drove off.
When a lion bites you, they have so much bacteria in their mouth, it's almost instant infection. And I mean, immediately after someone get bit, they just keep pouring hydrogen peroxide on it. The whole time they take you to the hospital. By the time you got there, you're infected.
5 minutes later, we see another ambulance coming. Drives up to the main compound, and the back door opens up, and it's Noel. he jumps out. And he goes, let's get the cameras. We're going to shoot close-ups on my hand. We're going to put this in the movie. And he said, Ken, squirt some blood in there. The bleeding had stopped. He wanted me to squirt fake blood into the hole. I realized after that day that this isn't the normal person I'm working for. This guy's a little out there.
By the end of day 1, Dad's whole arm was infected. He knew that wasn't the lion's fault by any means. They're being a lion. These are wild animals. They're wild, you're gonna get bitten. It's not if, it's when. So he had to spend the whole next week in the hospital. And then he was back on set and back in charge, along with his own special brand of chaos.
Roll sounds. Rolling. Roll camera. Marker. Roll camera. Marker. Action. Action.
Come on, lions! Come over here! Cut! Run! Get it over here!
At the time we shot Roar, one of the primary suppliers of camera equipment in Hollywood was Panavision, and they provided all the high-end cameras to all the big motion pictures that were shot in Hollywood and all over the world. I always coined the phrase, this shot will be shot in panic vision, because that's the way Noel always liked it. He liked to panic on the set. You know, the more chaos there was on the set, the more he enjoyed it.
This is my very first day. Noel takes me, literally, says, stand right here. Face that guy over there. And all of a sudden, all these people, they line up. And there's 2 lines. And we're facing each other. And just then, I hear this loud rumble and Noel screaming. And I look to my right, and here's Noel running like a crazy man with a sheet of plywood, shaking it, behind 30 to 40 lions, tigers, cougars, leopards that are running down this human chute that we have made. And this is the way they would move 30 or 40 cats from point A to point B.
Jan operated the camera on a lot of stuff, and a lot of very dangerous stuff, handheld the camera. And a lot of those scenes where you're in the room with Noel and 30 or 40 lions.
Nowadays, no one could ever do the same kinds of things that we did because they don't, there's too many safety considerations now to even attempt those kinds of things.
They were really looking out after the animals, you know, and they didn't want to injure the animals in any way, so they were pretty well protected. In fact, a lot of the crew members complained that the animals got better treatment than the crew members did.
In the 3rd week of filming, we were shooting a scene where the family was trying to escape from the lion house in a rowboat. There's one shot that Jan wanted to do, which is he is on shore, and we dug a hole for him, and he was going to handhold a camera when he was in this little pit. Well, we had to throw a green parachute over him so that it blended in with the grass to disguise the cameras.
They had the cats inside the caged-off area. And on cue, they would open the gate. The cats would run right over the top of the camera.
I told him, you can't do that. If you move down there, one of these cats is gonna eat you. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just a elephant trainer. I said, okay, have a good shoot.
Roll sounds. Rolling. Marker.
We're doing this scene where the family has been chased around the house on the lake by these cats. They had dug a trench along the shoreline. In the trench was Jan de Bont and his camera assistant, and they were covered by a camouflage net.
We all go in, we start acting, and we're in the rowboat. Jan's filming, handheld, underneath the parachute, and all the lionesses are all jumping over him.
It worked fine for the first few takes, but after about 3 or 4 takes, the lions know the routine now, and they're not coming out as quickly as they did initially.
The lioness saw this thing move underneath this green parachute that she didn't know what it was.
And like any cat, that cat was intrigued by it and went in order to pull the tarp off.
Just scalped him. So Jan got 200 stitches in the head, but it was a quick, one swipe, and everybody yelled, and we got him out of there and sent him to the hospital. Jan came back. He was back filming 2 weeks later.
The whole thing about the movie is that it's not a great movie in terms of story. It's not a great movie in terms of acting. It's a unique movie that showcases what can be done with wild animals.
These cats weren't really trained to do really anything. There were no special effects and there were no split screens. You know, none of that in this movie. So all the stuff that you see of people interacting with the cats, they were actually there. It had some of the most incredible animal and actor interface footage ever shot.
Noel wasn't training the cats to do anything in particular. He wanted the action to be real.
It was an incredible experience. The interesting thing about all of it was the entire time that we were filming, the lions just did what they would do in a given situation. As an example, the little lion, Gary, who carries on a conversation.
Well, hello, Gary. Oh, why did you go with your friend? Oh, come on.
We all knew this is something that we're going to do once in our lifetime with working with all these cats. They're pretty amazing. They were so inquisitive.
Their unique beauty, you just get to appreciate all of that on a much deeper level than you would ever in any other experience in life. Even if you went on a safari in Africa, you would never get that kind of an experience.
Everything that we all had in life was invested into this thing. All the money from all the houses, all the money that we could borrow from anybody went into this. Between the injuries, the delays, and the animal bills, the pressure was enormous.
Food bills, $10,000 a month back in, 70s.
Noel was balancing so much because not only directing, he's really the head animal wrangler, and he's also acting at the same time. So I think anybody would have gone nuts.
He knew what he wanted to do and how he was going to do it, and he didn't really want to hear anything that got in his way. The one thing he didn't want to have was Noel get upset.
What are you doing? Oh, you got that gate open? How can you be that stupid? It's not open over there. Well, you stopped here 3 feet back. I stopped here because the cow was in my way. Oh, you dumb! When did the camera stop?
Just 1 second, 2 seconds to go.
You rotten son of a bitch!
Roll sound.
Rolling. He constantly kind of pushed his luck in the number of takes that he would shoot.
Marker. Action.
And so it became like a game of daring the cats to lose control.
He endangered his whole family to make this crazy movie. It's really like, Ahab or a crazy obsession, really.
Noel took chances that no sane person would. He was just a crazy man. But that's what obsession does.
Timbo was an African bull elephant Dad had acquired from a Canadian animal park, who was soon joined by Cora, a female who came from the circus. Dad wanted the elephants to act naturally and just have minimal training, enough to walk them to and from the set without hurting anybody.
There's a scene where the family is in the boat and they're going around the lake and they're pulling the boat out. And unbeknownst to them, the elephant is there. And the elephant sees them and goes after the boat. And the elephant hated the boat. And it just stomped the bloody hell out of it.
My job was to train the elephants. I trained the elephant to take the boat away from them in the movie. That was fun. And I think we went through about 3 or 4 boats. Noel decided he wanted the elephant to pick Tippi up. And we practiced it, and we practiced it.
So she's trying to hold onto his ears and get a footing on his trunk. He's supposed to be rearing up or, with her on his head, shaking his head back around. And she slips. And her leg gets caught between the tusk and the trunk. So it breaks her ankle. a very severe break on her ankle. And in the movie, they run the film backwards. So that instead of falling off, it looks like the elephant has its trunk down and does like this, and she flies up onto his head.
The injury shut filming down for weeks and landed Tippi an extended stay in the hospital.
On a daily basis, you were cheating death. It was just insanity, you know.
Roll sounds. Rolling. Roll camera. Roll camera.
The culture of what this production was different than any other production. It was non-union, so they didn't follow any rules. They could expect anyone to do anything, including work within inches of dangerous lions and dangerous animals, you know.
Marker. Action. Action.
Safety protocols. I don't know any safety protocols.
It was crazy. The emergencies that would pop up every day. This guy just got his arm scratched. This guy got his face scratched. This guy has to go to the hospital. This guy needs stitches. It was pretty much nonstop.
I have a picture of the lion that bit me. It has a circle around him. One tooth into my neck here, another one here, pulled my ear off, the tooth on the skull, one tooth up inside my cheek, up just below my eye. It was pretty serious.
Noel was a great believer in hydrogen peroxide for everything. And so it was like somebody got bit, it was like, oh, I put hydrogen peroxide on it, you know.
Once a week, we sent somebody to the hospital. And the Palmdale Hospital was expanding, and the new wing we all nicknamed the Noel Marshall Wing.
There must have been 100 people, at least, if not more, that had been injured and admitted to the hospital for medical care.
Every time somebody got bitten, you know, there'd be fewer people, you know, and we were always, the turnover was a lot. I think one time we had probably 20 crew guys quit. So at the start of 1978, we were 9 years past Dad and Tippi's inspiration in Africa and a year and a half into filming. By now, everybody in the family had been injured by the cats, and that included Melanie, who was clawed across the face by a young lion and needed plastic surgery. But despite the injuries, there was no way Dad was giving up. He and Tippi had bet everything on the film. They'd sold the family homes and properties, and walking away would have been financial suicide. All your loved ones are all going to the hospital, but you still have to keep going, and you have to keep going. We couldn't make any money back until we finished the film, so each day we just pushed our luck a little bit further, and you could just feel it. Something really bad was gonna go down.
Roll sounds. Rolling.
We're doing a scene where Noel has just gotten out of the bathtub and he's walking around the house in his underwear, talking to Mativo.
What do you think you're running? A country club for lions? Come on, sit down here.
And Kyle Mativo was a brave African actor. He lived in Santa Monica. He was a Kenyan.
He says, in Africa, we don't go with the lions. The lions are over there and the people are over here. We don't go together.
Now there's lions and tigers walking around by Noel, some cougars and leopards up on the balcony and the rafters above him.
Sit down, you're okay.
You're surrounded 360 degrees of nothing but cats.
You leave him alone. Sit down. You're okay, sit down.
Noel, for whatever reason, was kind of tempting the lions, and take after take after take, you could feel the energy of the cats getting more and more aggressive.
Hey, no more fighting. Come here.
We were on take 21, so he was really pushing his luck.
This lion comes from down on the floor, comes up a couple steps.
And this is when one of the lions decided it was time to kill Noel.
and grabs Dad in the back of the leg and just, I mean, clamps into him and drags him off the stairs.
And just pulled him down like you would pull a mouse into a hole.
And then Noel just cursing and screaming and shrieking as he got kind of dragged off out of the camera.
He was bitten fairly seriously, a couple of deep puncture wounds on his thigh.
Blood coming down his leg. He is a mess. And they get him out of the house, and they start pouring hydrogen peroxide on him, and they bring up the truck, and they take him to the hospital.
While Noel was in the hospital recuperating from that injury, if the lions and tigers weren't biblical enough, late one afternoon in the cutting room, Jan de Bont came running in and said, "Help us, you've got to come out and help us, we have to build a dam."
We built the set house in the Santa Clarita riverbed, and it was in the floodplain. You're not allowed to build in the floodplain, but this is a temporary movie set, so we did. Soledad Canyon has flooded a few times through the years, but never really badly, not like it was in '78.
It rained and rained and rained, and the water started rising.
19 inches of rain in a 24-hour period of time. And what happened is about 5 miles upriver, it broke through the dam.
We heard hissing. At first couldn't figure it out, but then realized, we looked up the wash and saw this wall of water coming. It was literally a huge wall of water. It's like a tsunami.
Water was 4 or 5 feet high and going like 60 miles an hour. And there was a perimeter fence that kept the cats in. But pretty soon, one of the trailers broke up and took out the fence. So a lot of the cats escaped into the canyon.
Course of the night, and things got worse, and the waters expanded and slowly started to take out the entire canyon. Cats started breaking out of cages. We had to start letting cats out. We lost a lot of cats that night.
Robbie, who's the main lion and that's the hero of the whole movie, he was one of the 13 that got loose. They're as afraid as we are. There's a flood, they're not in their normal areas, everything's changing, and so it really, the dynamics of it all is set up that it's not gonna end well. A couple of our guys were going to get a chain on Robbie and gonna put him away.
He was the hero lion. He was the one that would roar and make that vicious face. And that's what he was doing when the guys came up on him.
To the sheriffs, it looked like he was going to kill our people, and they said, "Don't shoot."
You know, to a sheriff, that looks like the cats were attacking him. And Robbie, who was one of the best cats in the world, just got shot.
2 of our lioness who swept downstream, and they were in a trailer park, and apparently the animal control people hadn't remembered to bring their tranquilizer guns, so the police shot them.
Noel was in the hospital when the flood hit. He was bitten fairly seriously, and he had blood poisoning. And they were thinking about having to amputate his leg. And so he left the hospital without the doctor's permission.
And I hear this helicopter. It lands, and out gets Noel Marshall. He was scheduled for surgery that morning. And he sees me, he walks up to me, he says, "How many of the cats are still out?" I said, "Noel, I don't have a clue, man. They're everywhere." And he grabs a chain, he says, "Come with me."
We came back the next morning and we saw cars up in the trees. trailers were knocked over. Everything was pushed against the set, mud. It was a major disaster.
Robbie and the two females who we had raised from birth died from their wounds that night. It was very, very sad. I mean, Robbie was an amazing animal. He was very, very close. It's a member of the family to us. Our set was destroyed. The lake was destroyed. We didn't have a place for the animals to live. Where are you gonna put them? You can't leave them in cattle trucks for 3 months.
A lot of the sound reels and the film reels were more underneath the roof that had collapsed on it. We formed a line up the hill, and we start handing it off to each other and putting it up in a van.
To sit there and pull your film that you've literally, blood, sweat, and tears have gone into making this film and seeing it all just gone. That was the one time where we all said, maybe this is not meant to be. When the flood was happening, we were already kind of 95% of the way done with the movie. To not finish that last couple percent, which then the hope is that you would make so much money that you would be able to pay for everything, and then it would all make it worthwhile. So we pushed through 8 months of salvage work, first rebuilding a home for the cats, then recovering all the film and equipment we possibly could. And by July of 1979, Dad had raised money from investors and got a $3 million disaster loan, and we were rebuilt and ready to roll. We spent the rest of that year preparing for some of the hairiest action sequences ever made with big cats. And then we rolled the cameras. And Roar was a wrap.
At that time, I certainly wasn't qualified to say if the film was going to be good or bad. Later on, having done it after 35 years, I look back on it and say, what the hell were they thinking? And it was mostly lions and tigers. You just can't do a 2-hour movie with nothing but lions and tigers and a real thin plot line.
They started out marketing it as a fierce wild animal film, and that didn't go over so well. Then they changed it to a family-friendly film, and that didn't go over so well. And then they changed it to ferocious comedy. And of course, that genre doesn't exist. And so the only distribution deals they got were a handful of countries, Germany and a few others, but it was never released in the United States.
Universal wanted to give, I think, $5 million up front, and Dad never thought a deal was good enough. So he put the film on a shelf in a storage vault, and it stayed there for 35 years.
We like to call it the most expensive home movie ever made, but because it almost ended up being that. It got a lot of the crew members into the union. In that respect, it was a valuable asset to a lot of the members. And a lot of the crew members went on to big careers in the film industry.
Jan de Bont went on to direct Twister, that tornado movie, and was a DP on several big films. I went on to have a career mixing sound on a lot of big movies. And of course, Melanie Griffith, who went on to be nominated for an Oscar. And several people, that was the way we got our start. Trial by fire, or trial by tiger.
When we got done with the movie, everybody wanted to split because their life had been put on hold. We thought it was 9 months. After 5 years, it's almost like you're getting out of jail. Dad and Tippi were still living at the ranch. They sold all the other homes. It was very hard on their marriage. It was, the whole thing was hard. It was very intense, and they got separated within a month after filming. Well, fortunately for Dad, because he didn't have the money to support the ranch, Tippi then stayed out there and made it a nonprofit organization. She turned the set into a permanent preserve for exotic animals and named it Shambhala, which means a meeting place of peace and harmony for all beings.
She took the responsibility upon herself even after Noel was gone. you know. Got to give her credit, huh? She really went from movie star to animal lover. I mean, Tippi Hedren was a movie star at that time. And then her career just kind of fell off the map, you know. But if she was happy doing what she was doing, that's all that really mattered anyway, you know.
And we kept all the lions and kept them healthy, and they died off. We didn't breed anymore. We took in abandoned, abused animals, and Tippi has kept that running effectively all these years.
What we did learn from this experience is people shouldn't be interacting with wild animals. People shouldn't be buying wild animals. People shouldn't be allowed to breed animals to sell to private individuals.
She had that passion that stayed with her all her life. So Shambhala is her legacy.
As the daughter of actress and animal advocate Tippi Hedren, tonight's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, I can really vouch for my mother's passion and commitment to the protection of big cats because I was there from the very beginning.
Tippi, through charitable donations, has taken care of all the animals through the years. And her Lifetime of Achievement was honored at the Humane Society's 2010 Genesis Awards. As for Dad, Roar's alpha lion, well, he died that same year at the age of 79. His legacy is a film that's misguided, a financial disaster, and the most dangerous movie ever made. But I can tell you, making it and working alongside the big cats was the most extraordinary experience of my life.
There's not too many of us Roar people left anymore. We're all fallen by the wayside, but we survived it. If you can say you survived Roar, buddy, you can do anything in life.